Buenos, buenos, buenos. Bonjour, everyone. Good evening. Hope
See,
everyone.
I don't speak a lot of other languages like you, bro. I mean, I just have to. I'll just say hi. Hi, everybody.
Hello. Welcome to the Think Big podcast. Today, we're going to be speaking about how to scale your business to six figures a month. Starring our best friend here, Mr. Sam. He's going to tag us along, teach us the
Dude,
sauce, give us a sauce. Can't
man,
wait.
I'm
Super
excited
excited
about
for
this
this.
one. I'm super excited about this one because I think that the word scale, right? It's like the sexiest word in real estate. So it's a word that everybody wants to talk about, right? It's how do I scale? How do I scale? And I think that trying to talk about scaling in the context of an hour is almost impossible. To do it right, to do it, it's due diligence. This may have to become like a 4-hour masterclass that we do later separately. But I think we're going to do a lot of things today, man. We're going to debunk some things. We're going to demystify some things. And then most importantly, I think we need to do this really important thing that no one really understands, and that is setting expectations of what scaling actually is and what it looks like. And I think that's so let's dive into this, man. The amount or the number of new investors who get their first deal, second deal, third deal, fourth deal, and then they start using the magic S word, the word scale. And I'm honestly, nothing drives me more insane because they're not ready. And I want to talk about this. I really want to hammer away at this, guys. So the word scale, there is the idea of what people think it is, and then there's the reality of what scaling is. And if you've done 1, 2, hell, even 10 deals, you're probably not ready to scale yet. Scaling isn't dependent primarily on your experience. It isn't dependent on how many deals you've done. It's actually dependent on your foundation. It is the same as a house, right? You need a solid foundation to build up on. If you don't, it's like a house of cards. The thing's going to come falling down so freaking fast, right? So freaking fast. Scaling a real estate business is the exact same way. So I want to talk about, I'll start off with this. I'm going to spend a minute talking about who scaling isn't for. Now, this is where we have to be honest with ourselves and ask ourselves, hey, is this me? Am I this guy who has this set up and then I'm using the word scale? Maybe I need to readjust and rethink. If you have one VA who is part-time, if you are calling every seller yourself, if your CRM is a mixture of 17 different CRMs, or it is not a CRM, if you do not have clear, definitive guidelines in how a lead moves through your company, in how work moves through your company, you don't have that written down explicitly somewhere, you are not ready for scale. Scaling is a really, really, really interesting thing. And it is not dependent on whether or not you do deals yet. It's not. I know people who are doing 4 or 5 deals a month. They're not ready to scale because the question is, what are they going to scale? Scale their efforts of them calling every seller? You're just going to talk to more sellers. Is that scaling? Right? You can. I guess you can do more deals that way if you talk to more sellers yourself. But is that the scale that we're talking about? I think that's really important, right? I think we all, when we use the word scale, we're thinking about scaling our business to produce when we're not there, right? How can we grow our revenue and our profit and our potency in our business predictably and sustainably? I think those are the 2 key words, right? Is predictable and sustainable. So scaling, it's not really for solopreneurs who are just kind of willing their way and just kind of pulling themselves through the trenches. It is for people who have a foundation to their business. And this is going to like ruffle a lot of feathers, and a lot of people are going to be really sad about this, but this is true. One of the most important things in business, and it's something that we're not really taught as beginners, but we learn the importance of this later, is 3 magic letters, and they're called SOPs. Standard Operating Procedures, which means they are explicit guidelines that are tracked, whether on a Word form document, on a Loom video, I don't care. They're just documented somewhere, right? They have to be documented somewhere, showing how a procedure, a task, a deliverable has to be handled in your business. Ideally, most, if not all, procedures and tasks in your business need to have a correlating SOP. If they do not, you don't even have a foundation yet. So, like, what does that mean? Data entry. How is a list or a lead entered into the CRM? How do the statuses work? How does a cold caller assign a lead to a lead manager? How does a lead manager pass off a lead in the system to a closer? How does that closer, right, underwrite that deal? Do you have scripts and processes? Is negotiating just dynamic and based on their talent? Or do you have a step-by-step procedure on how negotiation should work? Same thing goes with TC. Same thing goes with Dispo. If it's not explicitly written in a manual somewhere, in some way, shape, or form, whether that's written or video, it's not an SOP. And at that point, you are scaling this kind of idea that's not explicit. Otherwise, you're scaling talent. You're scaling personal involvement, which is not true scale. That just means you're working harder. Congrats. Something that was taught to me by one of my mentors way back when is really important. And it really kind of shook how I view this industry. And it's that you cannot scale talent. You can only scale systems and processes.
Oh my God, I'm so excited about this topic, dog. Let's go. Marlon, how you doing, Mr. Johnson?
What's good, bro? I'm chilling, man.
Looking like you're
I'm soaking it all in right now. We got the GOAT Sam talking about scaling.
man.
Dude, this is gonna be a fun one, man. It's gonna be a fun one. I think we may have to do like 17 different parts for this because scaling is just it is not an hour-long topic, guys. It really isn't. And you can talk about scale in every aspect of your business when it comes down to data, to marketing and lead generation, to acquisitions, to TC, to Dispo, to everything can be scaled, right? So let's isolate the foundation of what you need to scale. Everything has to be explicit, guys. Even though Daryl's not here right now, he's gonna be joining us in a little bit. Every one of us has gotten to the point in our business where we've had to SOP everything. Everything. Now, some of us have, done the grind work in filling out SOPs ourselves or filming them on Loom videos. And yes, an SOP can be as simple as filming a Loom video of you filling out a lead form. And then you would title that file, how to fill out lead form. There you go. That's an SOP. Now, a lot of my SOPs, I decided I didn't want to take the time. So I took the shortcut and I paid a mentor a crap ton of money to get their book of SOPs at an extremely high scale, right? Just cut to the best practices. So you don't have to spend a ton of money. You just spend a lot of your time doing it yourself and documenting every system and process and how to operate every system and process. And I want to give an analogy that I love giving. What is the greatest fast food franchise of all time? It's McDonald's, right? McDonald's. It's the biggest. It's the best. Sure, Chick-fil-A outperforms it, but can't compare with how many locations McDonald's has worldwide as a stranglehold on fast food. Every McDonald's, in every bathroom, in every McDonald's, there is an infographic step-by-step showing people how to wash their hands. Something that everyone knows how to do. They have it written and in graphics. There's photos of people, soap, lathering, rinse. Every McDonald's in the world. The greatest fast food franchise of all time has the simplest steps like washing your hands in an SOP.
Mm.
You need to have the exact same kind of process, the exact same kind of ideology in your business. Assume that nothing is inherently easy. Assume that everything needs to be taught. Data entry, lead intake, comping, underwriting, how to use and fill out an MAO calculator, how to change a lead status from new lead to dead lead or to do not call. All these things need to be written out explicitly in your business. Once you have those things, you're going to start gaining traction. You're going to start getting predictable traction in your business. Then you've done some deals. Now you're making some money. Things feel really good. Now you can maybe start thinking about scaling. Why? Because you have a foundation that can be built upon. You don't have that foundation. You try to pour gasoline on it, it's just going to come crashing down. It's just the way it is. I look at so many people trying to scale revenue and scale their business without the proper foundation. What ends up happening is this: they just dump more money into lead generation. They hire more VAs. They send out 10 times the amount of texts. They start doing PPC, and they don't even have an SOP for how to comp. What ends up happening is this: it makes it harder for them to go hire people, train people. They give themselves more tasks in their own business, makes it harder for them to remove themselves from those tasks. And it means the entire system bogs them down, becomes unsustainable. They hate their lives, and they're not getting what they wanted, which was financial and time freedom and predictable and sustainable results. So I think today, at the very least, let's set an idea and an expectation of how to approach scale. And we'll do that with lead gen. I think lead gen is probably the best one to talk about. It's the easiest one to talk about, because I want people to start reframing their mindsets. Yes, Alejandro Alvarez is one of the best closers in the industry, period. Freaking period. Guy is a freaking sales god, right? If Alejandro tried to scale his business based on his own talent, he would fail. He'd make a crap ton of money, but he wouldn't become a billionaire. He would not become worth 100 million doing it. Why? Because he hasn't removed himself from a task that is honestly not worth all of his time. Alejandro Alvarez would need to scale by putting his SOPs in place, getting his foundation in place, and then reverse engineering what his target is. So this is what scale looks like, guys. At the highest level, it truly looks like this. Pick a goal, quarterly goal. Marlon and I, we kind of have this thing where we talk about quarter for the quarter, right? Quarter for the quarter is this really fun goal, and I did a gigantic Zoom on it, which is fantastic. And I'm going to basically give you guys a condensed format of quarter for the quarter in the next 45 minutes. Quarter for the quarter is about how you can basically make $250,000, $250,000 in 1 quarter of the year, which is 3 months. Every goal has to start with the end, or every venture, every campaign in any business model starts with the end goal in mind first, and then you reverse engineer back. So, Alejandro, do you have your iPad, your fancy whiteboard?
I do. It will be complicated to plug it in here, though, with this unfortunate setup I have now.
Okay, it's okay. That would have been dope if we had it. I don't have mine. Okay, Marlon, you wouldn't happen to have yours, would you?
Nah, bro.
Damn.
Every time I
It's
try
okay.
to share my screen on this, like, it goes crazy, it goes haywire.
Just
Okay.
for that, Sam, moving forward, I feel like I failed you today. Moving forward, I will have this setup ready for you.
Every time. That's all I ask. It's okay. It's okay. We'll figure it out, and then I'm going to try to walk you guys through it, probably a little bit slower then. Let's start with the goal. Let's say in the next 3 months, right, you want to make $250,000. It's a damn good goal. It's a damn good goal. Step one is figuring out, what does your lead gen strategy look like? Which one is it? Because each one of them is going to have different components that we need to characterize. There's cold call, there's texting, SMS, there's PPC, which is Google Ads. There's Facebook ads, which is another form of inbound lead. There are direct mail campaigns. There are door knocking, driving for dollars. There's all of these campaigns. And guess what? All of these campaigns have a very critical thing. It's known as a cash conversion cycle. What does that mean? It doesn't mean how soon you can get a deal. It means from the point you put $1 into the funnel, how long do you have to wait for that dollar to predictably come back to you with a return on it? We can all start a cold call campaign tonight and get a deal in the next week. Doesn't mean that it's going to happen consistently every single week. Cold call has a cash conversion cycle right now of about 6 to 9 months. Now, for better teams, it can be a little bit sooner, right? For more inexperienced teams, it can be a little bit longer because it's dependent also partially on their ability to capitalize on an opportunity that's in front of them. So what does that mean? Why is Alejandro one of the best closers out there? Because this dude can crush creative finance. His cash conversion cycle is going to be higher than someone who only has cash up their sleeve, because he can do sub-2, seller finance, novations, wraps, hybrids. He knows how to wholesale to hedge funds. He knows how to wholesale to 1,000,001 different entities. So he has more tools in his tool belt, which means he can rig the cash conversion cycle in his favor. But Industry standard, we typically see 5 to 9 months or 6 to 9 months on a cold call campaign. Let's talk about cold call for the purposes of this little bit of time. For the purpose of this podcast, I want to talk about cold call because it's the one that most people use when they first get started, right? In terms of lead gen strategies. When we look at lead gen, there's an industry standard of how many leads it will take based on the lead gen strategy. How many leads do you need to get a deal? Alejandro, do you know, like, have you heard what the industry standard is right now for how many leads it takes with cold call to get a deal?
50, 50.
50. Absolutely. Now, that number can become more or less dependent on the skill set of the team, their systems and processes, their ability to capitalize on an opportunity that another team might not be able to be. But on average, we see about 50 leads to one deal.
We just had
50 leads to one closed deal.
Last month. My team had, I think it was like between 10 and 14 leads per contract, something crazy.
Dude, 10 to 14 leads per contract through cold
That's
call.
solid.
Bananas.
That's insane, right? And it also shows that you guys have a ton of tools in your tool belt, right? Your capture rate in business, we call this in fancy executive MBA school, it's called the capture rate. It's your ability to capture on an opportunity that your competitors may not be able to because you have more unique marketing abilities. Jonathan Newsom's right. Those are PPC numbers, man. That's normally when a 1 in 10 capture rate or a 1 in 10 conversion rate, you see that only on like a PPC campaign or a YouTube campaign, which is like a very new thing that's up and coming. And we're still testing those things out. But with cold call, let's just say on industry standard, you should expect 1 in 50.
Shout out to my marketing team, man. They're freaking killing it, bro. They're spending like hours pulling like very niche list. So shout out to them.
Boom. Exactly. Right. And there's a lot of things you can do to rig that. You can rig that with direct county data.
Data matters.
Data matters. It all starts with data, right? And I don't want to get too into the weeds because obviously I own a data company and we like have the best data. So we see those rigged numbers. But the reality is data matters, right? If you're going and pulling direct foreclosures that have an auction date in the next 10 days, your chances to get a deal out of that are astronomically higher than if you go pull a generic bulk list with very little standard motivation in it. So anyways, let's just say 50 leads to a deal, okay? 50 leads to a deal. If you hire a full-time cold caller, a solid cold caller will produce probably about 3 leads a day, I would say. Between 2 to 3 leads a day, right? 5 days a week, full-time. How long does it take if they're producing 3 leads a day, 5 days a week? How long does it take for you to fill up that pipeline to get your 50 leads?
Let's do the math.
Probably
So
what,
yeah.
16, 17 straight days?
Something like that. You know, my boy Marlon has the fancy calculators.
I'm just pulling it out. If we're producing 3 leads per day, right, and we're doing that 5 days a week, we're producing 15 leads a week, right?
Times that by 3 and then add a little bit to it.
Yep. So we're looking at about 3.5 weeks.
So about 3.5 weeks, not to get a deal, to do what?
To get
To
enough
fill
leads
the
in your
pipeline. To fill the pipeline with the 50 leads that you need. Okay. Now, cool. Now our pipeline's full. Now what? We do this thing called follow-up, right? Marlon, on average, how many touches does it take? How many times do you have to contact a seller in a cold call campaign to be able to typically lock them up under contract and get a deal?
Typically, you're going to be looking at about 7 to 10 touches.
7 to 10?
Yep.
Yeah. And if you're more inexperienced, probably going to be a little bit more than
It'll
that.
probably be
right?
higher if you're inexperienced, if you're new and you're scared to have those conversations.
For most newbies, we typically see it's typically between 10 to 13. For those advanced teams who have multiple strategies like Alejandro's team has, it's going to be a little bit better, right? It's going to be on that. It's going to be on the sub 10 mark. But let's just say you're a brand new person. It's going to take you 50 leads. Each one of them is going to take 10 to 13 touches. Those 10 to 13 touches don't happen in a week, right? It's not like a lead comes in and in 7 days you call them 13 times. You will get hurt. You will get sued for that. You will have the police called on you. Instead, what you do is you phase those follow-ups out over the course of 1-2 months, sometimes even 3 months, depending on the sellers and what's going on in their lives, right? This is why we say fortune is in the follow-up. The more you follow up, the longer it takes. A lot of times that's where the money starts coming in. That's when the money starts returning to you, is in that long-term follow-up sequence. So lo and behold, we're 3.5 weeks in to fill the pipeline, maybe 1 to 2 months long just to hit the follow-up touches to be able to get the contract. All in all, you're already 2.5, 3 months in, 4 months in, right? You're probably between 3 to 4 months in. Now you've got a contract. Now what happens? Now you've got to be able to hit an escrow period that may be 45, 60 days, right? Because we always say 30 days, but crap happens. Extensions need to be filed, right? Because you didn't miss your inspection period when you shouldn't have. You have to market it further. Typically got 45, 6 days for another escrow period. Right there, you're about 5 to 6 months in. 5 to 6 months in is like, what did we say earlier? 5 to 9 months on the cash conversion cycle, 6 to 9 months on a cash conversion cycle. So Karen asked this really good question. All steps are important, but there are ways to personalize the process when touching leads. Which ones are the most important to make sure you get the contract? So I want you to be a little bit more specific with that question. Which ones of what? So while you get back to me on that, I'm gonna keep going on how to approach scale and how to understand it as a business owner. Your job is to reverse engineer the numbers and figure out how do I produce 50 leads? What does that cost like? What to expect? Also, here's the thing, guys. Remember, there is about I believe right now it's about like a 1 in 5 industry standard for fallout rate. Means out of like every 1 in 4, 1 in 5 contracts that get signed, one of them is going to fall out, right? So out of every 4 or 5 contracts that get signed, one of them will typically fall through at title. That's for decent, okay teams, right? For the best teams, it's going to be better than that. It's going to be a better ratio. There's stuff that just comes up at title that just has to happen, right? You missed an influential party. There's liens that just kill the numbers, yada, yada, yada. So as a business owner, my job is to wonder like, okay, how do I generate 50 leads? Can I do it through cold call? Cold call, right? If we use a cold caller who's full-time and their charge is $8 an hour, our next thought process, and we'll do it with SMS as well, right? Well, with cold call, $8 an hour, 40 hours a week for, let's just say, a month. What does that look like? Marlon, you got me on that?
Cold call at $8. Let me pull that calculator back up. I was just messaging. I saw Joseph Frangos in the chat, bro. I got excited.
Yeah, shout out to Joseph Frangos. Freaking
run that number back for me.
Being. What was that?
Run that number back for me.
So if we need to fill up a pipeline with cold call
for
50 leads, and the VA costs $8 an hour, let's put it out a month.
So VA is costing you $8 an hour. VA is typically going to be working about 40 hours a week. VA is typically going to be working. Actually, let's call it 8 hours a day. They're usually going to be producing anywhere from 2 to 3 leads if you have good data on your calls. So they need to be able to produce 50 leads. Let's divide that.
Round it up. Instead of saying 3.5 weeks, let's just say a full month. So $8 an hour times what? About 160 hours a month.
Yep.
That just shy of 1,300.
1,280.
1,280. Ooh, I'm getting smart. So $1,280. So as a business owner, I know just to fill my pipeline to anticipate a cost of $1,280 with an $8 an hour VA. Then I need to factor in my systems, right? $100 for my CRM, $120 for my dialer system, right? XYZ. These are how we still reverse engineer all these numbers. Now I want to talk about SMS. I love SMS. I think that if you're a newbie, one, you should do both. You do SMS with a mixture of cold call, but SMS first. Why? Because it's easier to hit your numbers. Now, SMS is really cool because it is just easy to send out a crap ton of SMS texts. We don't see a 1 in 50 conversion rate with SMS. From everything that I've seen from all my mentors, from all the people who do this at a high level, we typically see more. It's not going to take 50. It's typically going to take 70 to 75. And the reason why is it is a typically colder marketing channel. Not by much, but it is a colder marketing channel. Simple reason is this. When you call another human being and you disrupt their day, you're going to, for them to be able to sit through that phone call with your VA, go through a conversation, talk about their problems, the chances of them actually being a lead are a lot higher than when you just do cold outreach to someone's phone. It's a lot easier when you reach out to someone's phone for them just take half a second to text back and just BS you for a little bit, and you think it's a legitimate lead. So that's why we typically need to rig the game with more leads in SMS than we do in cold call. So we see a 1 in 75. The cool thing about SMS is it's dirt cheap to send out. Like right now, what are we seeing for SMS cost? Depending on the platform that you use, if you're using Twilio, you can send out texts at what, 0.0075 cents per text.
Let's look it up. I'm not using Twilio right now.
Well, Twilio is a good back-end tool, but that's if you go directly to the source. Rick says, right, SMS 400 to 500 per leads roughly. In most average markets, we typically see that for every 500 outbound texts, you'll generate one decent lead on it. Cool. Now you need 75 of them. So when you're doing SMS to start, I would actually recommend that you send out at least 1,000 if you can per day, right? Otherwise, it's going to take an extremely long time.
At least.
At least. Because if you do too little, it's not moving the needle enough, right? So send out more. So I want you guys to look at scale in a very simple way. It is a reverse engineering. It is just math. It is just KPIs. Oh, and another thing, guys, for those of you guys who don't track your KPIs, you cannot scale.
Oh my God.
No way.
Yeah.
And people are like, well, I can double my spend. Sam, I'm getting 4 deals a month, spending $5,000 a month. What if I just spend 10 grand? Should I get 8 deals? Here's the problem, guys. If you've got a leaky foundation when you pour gasoline on it, right? You're also scaling your inefficiency.
Mm-hmm.
You're scaling your burn rate. You're scaling the amount of dollars that you're not getting a return on. Yeah, you're going to scale your revenue, but you're also going to scale your loss. And that is not true scale. That's just being irresponsible. We look at the best teams on earth. They are master optimizers. What they do is this. They have every KPI dialed in and tracked. Then they'll pour fuel on it, right? They'll light that on fire. It's gonna do what it does. And then they'll allow it to stabilize. They'll clean up the mess. And then they pour gasoline on it again and again and again. They repeat that process. It's constant tweaking and then optimization. Then a tweak, then optimize. Then a tweak, then optimize.
Bro, you know what's funny? Actually, like that's so spot on because I can tell you guys from having not done what Sam is explaining right now, the first time I attempted to scale my wholesale business, it was absolutely a horror show. I mean, like I went from just being a mean, lean team of me, one VA that was cold calling, and I had 2 acquisition guys, and they were just my lead managers, and I was closing my deals, and I already had my buyers lined up, and we were doing like anywhere from 2 to 3 deals on average per month, like consistently. And it was like, all right, well, it's time to scale. But to Sam's point, I wasn't tracking my KPIs. I didn't know what I was scaling. So I brought on an integrator thinking that person would have the problems all figured out for me. And I made the cardinal mistake as a business owner. I wasn't in touch with my numbers, right? I just assumed that this other person was going to handle all of that stuff for me, and they can handle the work, but I still need to be intimate with numbers. I wasn't intimate with numbers. We grew from a team of, just me and that VA and those other guys to about 15 VAs working underneath us. And we were basically just throwing money at the problem. And we didn't realize, like Sam was saying, we were making the problem bigger. I was pouring gasoline on the fire. And this fire was not only cooking the food, but it was also burning the building. And huge mistake. So like seriously, like I want y'all listening to what Sam is saying. Like I'm genuinely like tuned in. Like this is why I love talking to Sam. He gets my mind to think more like a business owner and not just an operator.
Dude, that is so you're right? Operators, they think about how much more can they put into the system with their time, with their efforts, with their talent. A business owner and a real CEO, right, thinks about how can we leverage systems, processes, and other people to scale our business. And you can't do that unless you're tracking every little data point, right? Every little KPI, your key performance indicators in your business need to be tracked. So, and we see this day in, day out, guys. I've got a really cool, like a super dope, I'm going to be super braggadocious when I say this. My data company has the best data in the country. Like we stand by this. We really do. At the Data Syndicate, we know we have the best data. And we are constantly not just getting newbies, but we're actually getting extremely high performing teams who are making over 6 figures a month, right? And everyone would be super impressed by that. And one of the first steps that we do at Data Syndicate is we basically do like a mini business marketing optimization call, where we basically label out, hey, what are you doing for lead gen? What are you doing for your marketing? Where's your data coming from? How are you doing outreach? What do your numbers look like? How much are you spending? And we attach labels to this. Is this optimal spend or is this suboptimal spend? And what we quickly find is even the big players, right? Who, Marlon, you said this, you were throwing money at the problem instead of fixing the problem, right? A lot of the biggest players, they do the exact same thing. And what we're quickly finding out is they may be making $100,000 a month, but guess what? They're spending 60. Their numbers are horrible. Their return is horrible. It is not optimized whatsoever. And because they're not tracking enough, what we end up seeing is they have a massive loss. Like, I'll put it to you this way. When you go pull a 10,000 record list from a general data source, right? A very general broad data source, and 20% of that list doesn't skip trace, right? You don't get a return on that. When you market to that data set, you will never get a return on 20% of that data. But guess what? You're still spending money on it. You just allow 20% of your spend to go down the drain and get burned that you will never have a return on. Find me another business industry where we are allowed to go ahead and just off the top line burn 20% of our marketing budget, and it's okay because it's the cost of doing business. I don't see that happening in any other industry except for real estate acquisitions. And I want everyone to know that it should not be that way. Every dollar that you put in has to give you a predictable return back out. If not, figure out how you can spend that dollar better.
I love this. I think you just read Joseph Frangel's. I'm going to put it up here for everyone to see this, right? Because Joseph just said this. He had a conversation this morning with one of his clients who was stoked about a $15K deal, which, like, yeah, we get excited about a $15K deal, but overhead on it was $20K, and he only did one deal last month. So, in other words, this guy, he did a $15,000 wholesale, and he lost $5,000. See, margins matter. Margins matter big time. And wholesale real estate has the potential to be a very high margin business if you're plugging the holes. If you don't plug the holes, this can be a very expensive business, just as much as fixing and flipping, just as much as anything else. So it's really important that you tune in on your systems and really clean up any of the inefficiencies. Like, I love what Sam is saying, like those SOPs that you're talking about, knowing your numbers that you're talking about, it's a major thing. And Sam, let me ask you this, right? Like, why do most people not take the time to put together SOPs, even though they intellectually like know it's something that they need to do? Like, they've heard it, they've seen other people talk about it, they've heard it on podcasts, maybe they've read the book Traction and they understand that systems need to be in place. What do you find typically prevents a person or persons from putting it together?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, a lot of times it's that in this industry, it's not even taught very much, right? In YouTube University, in the world of real estate acquisitions, not a lot of guys who are preaching SOPs. There's just not. Instead, people preach what? JV Squad Up, which is amazing and it has all of its merits in the world, right? But when it comes down to building a business, there's a difference between doing deals and JVing and squatting up and building a business. Those are two very, very, very different things, right? Now, I think the primary thing, one of the primary things is this: when in life have most of us had to build an SOP for anything? You ever notice that we just go through life and we just do the things that we do and we pick up patterns and recognition on how to do these behaviors and these habits and we just do them over again, right? I know how to drive. I know how to come to a stop sign. I know how to let off the gas. I've never had to write that down explicitly on how to do it. Other people have done it. Other people have written a driver's manual and a driver's ed course. I haven't. So for a lot of people, they go their entire lives, going through school, solving math problems, right? Going through life, solving relationship problems. You in your own work, for a lot of people who come from W-2s, those SOPs are already built for them. A lot of business owners aren't used to having to go build the SOPs themselves. And I think that is a jarring thing for a lot of people. They know they need to do it, but then this thing called procrastination kicks in. Because when you are building SOPs, the reality is this: the phase where you're building SOPs, your business will stall just a little bit. because those aren't directly money-making activities, but they're critical activities for future money-making. Marlon, I'm curious, what do you think?
Yeah, man. Well, you know what? First off, I agree with you entirely that unfortunately it's not spoken about regularly. I know when I got into this, no one really differentiated doing deals and building a business. Or you know what? Very few people. It took getting into paid mentorship programs, getting proximity with high-level operators and owners that they started to show me if I don't go out and learn how to build a business, if I don't start figuring out this skill set, and that's it. That's what it is. It's a skill set. It needs to be worked at. So I think that's what happens. I also think that when some people understand it needs to be built, what unfortunately occurs is it doesn't necessarily feel like work right away because, like you said, it stalls. It feels like the airplane is stalling out in the air, and it feels like your nose diving towards the earth. And for some people, that's exactly what's going to happen. You're going to go to fix a problem, and you're going to realize, like, look, I could put a Band-Aid on this, or I can come up with a way of doing this, a process for doing this, so that this problem doesn't occur again and again and again. Because if it happened once, it can happen again. So it's having that reminder, and that's what I'm hoping that this conversation can be. It can be a reminder because some guys aren't, they're not as smart as Alejandro and Sam. They're stupid like me, right? Like I got to touch the fire and get burnt by it to learn my lesson. So I've already been burned by this lesson, right? I understand what it's like to think you have a business, but you actually own your job. And then you start to realize your job owns you because you're constantly reacting versus taking the time to think and respond and understand how you want your business to operate. Make the rest of the marketplace bend to the will of your business and really create a place that other people could come in now and succeed because here are clearly defined rules on how to win the game.
Yep, dude. You hit it. You absolutely freaking hit it. And I think a lot of this is, and we're not faulting anybody, right? I think that if we look back at it, man, Marlon, I don't know about you, Alejandro, I don't know where you guys stand on this, but if I had to do this entire thing over again, I would literally start not by like going and calling sellers. I would go figure out, okay, how to do lead gen, how to comp, how to underwrite. And the first thing I would do is just build my SOP base. Just start working immediately. The first month of my career in this industry, just be nothing but nose down. Let's create the database. Let's create the syllabus. Let's create the playbook, right? Explicitly. Why? And this is why it's so important, guys, to scaling, is when you have things explicitly written down or documented in certain places, it becomes infinitely easier to recruit, hire, train, and retain other human beings to leverage other people's work. So it's not you doing it all the time. That is so critical. And I think another thing that was told to me by, a mentor of mine is we talked about other gurus in the industry, right? It's nothing against certain gurus, but there are gurus who are in this industry not to teach you. They're there to teach you how to do transactions, how to do 1-2 transactions, how to do a type of transaction, right? Maybe micro niches in the world of acquisitions. Then there are mentors who teach you how to create a business. And those are two very, very, very different things, right? Doing a deal versus building a business are two super clearly different things. And then it's really important because Marlon, I think you can agree with this. I think Alejandro, you as well. At a certain point, we see that 99% of people, they get into this industry and they like fail forward, do 3, 4, 5 deals. And then, a couple deals, 10 deals, 15 deals, and about a year or two in, they decide, okay, it's time for me to truly scale. They diagnose their business, they find out the blueprint, and they realize, holy crap, I can't hit this because my business has no structure. So if I try to scale, it's just going to come crashing down. And what they do is they end up hitting a hard reset on their business. I know, I've been there. In my first year, I just saw the writing on the wall and I realized, damn, Marlon, it was actually when we did that first 6-figure month, right? We did 6-figure February last year. We both made 6 figures in 1 month. It was the first time either of us had ever done it. I looked at it and I got the number down, did 121 grand, but I did it as a solopreneur and it took me 80 hours a week. And I realized, holy crap, I thought I could go scale right after that. I went and talked to the best in the industry and I found out that, wow, they actually have systems and processes and leverage in place that I didn't have. So for the only way for me to scale what I was doing and hit maybe $250,000 a month would have been for me to go from 80 hours a week to 160 hours a week. That was my only leverage that I could call in. So when you start doing SOPs and you put systems and processes and people in place, you can leverage external factors that are not you, and then you can mathematically scale. So it starts with your data, guys. Get the best data if you're doing outbound. Right now, let's talk about JVs, because I think a lot of people start off with JVs, and JVs are a phenomenal way to do this business. JVs are really important. Guess what? Just approach it the exact same way. If you're a closer and you're JVing and you're getting other people to bring you lead flow, great. Work with people who have their lead generation dialed in. They know their KPIs for lead gen. They know that, hey, they've got 4 callers and each of those callers is producing 2 leads a day. So they're consistently producing 8 leads a day. You know that if they keep hitting their numbers, you're going to have your 50 lead pipeline generated in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, right? That's what this game is all about. You can scale JV mostly. The problem with scaling JV mostly is that you don't control the entire funnel. So if people decide to stop producing at the rate that they're producing at, or they decide to change their lead gen strategies, it may affect your business. It may affect your business if you're not on the front line. Angel asked, what is the best data? So there's different types of data, and not all data is created equally, just the way it is. First and foremost, the best data is the data that gives you a competitive advantage. And that means that it's the freshest. Now, you can stack data in very unique ways to basically find data that, records or homeowners who have multiple motivating factors kind of stacked on top of each other. And this, in theory, means that they're more motivated to sell. This is true. That's one way to do it. I would ask yourself, where can you get data that gives you a competitive advantage against everyone else in the marketplace? And your number one competitive advantage that you can actually do is just going where no one else goes to get their data. And that is directly to the county. So selfishly, kind of know about a company called Data Syndicate. They do just that. So they're pretty good.
That's my answer, bro. Like, that's like Data Syndicate, dog. The best. Like, I've seen the work that y'all put in behind the scenes, and like it's insane. Like, whenever like a group of people, and this is slightly tangent, everybody, but it's a tangent that needs to be heard. Whenever a company or people go into the marketplace and their thought process, the foundation on what they're doing is, how do I serve the customer more than anybody else? How do I add more value to the person more than anybody else? That's the sort of marketplace like you want to be in. That's the sort of business you want to work with, people you want to JV with, partners you want to bring into your business, companies that you want to associate yourself with and purchase their products, because they are going to be there for you to grow, because they recognize, any good company understands fully that they can only grow as large as they grow other people. That's the only way for them to grow. Freaking love that.
100%. 100%. The reality is, when it comes down to products and services, like, let's say like the Data Syndicate, or, there's a mutual friend of ours, Marlon, his name is Dustin Reyna, is creating a pretty dope CRM. Right. Dustin. We look at these companies and they're based not on just like creating a product that can make a ton of money. They're based on solving problems that no one else wants to solve. A lot of times it's because it's not extremely profitable to solve that problem. But the reality is, those problems are the most important ones to solve, and they're the ones that usually can have massive effects on people's businesses. So whether you're getting the data from the Data Syndicate, or you're like Joseph and you have someone in-house that is pulling the data directly themselves, the reality is this: the best data is the freshest data. The freshest data comes directly from the source, and that source is county record.
So Sam, I got a question for you, and maybe this is going to be like, I'm actually curious to hear your answer. And this is geared towards hopefully some new people that are in the audience who are building up their business. You kind of mentioned that a person shouldn't start thinking about scaling until afterwards, until they're doing, X amount of deals, and really more so until they know their numbers.
Yep.
When it comes to scaling, though, like, at what point should a person even be like listening to this, like, and be thinking about scaling? Like, if someone's brand new, they're getting into this industry for the first time, should they even be listening to us talk about scaling right now? Or do you think they should wait until they've done a deal, or they've done 10 deals, or they have $10,000 in a bank account, or $100,000 in a bank account? Is there like a place, like, or a certain milestone that a person should go hit first? Or do you think, like, from day one, you need to know where this ship is heading?
I think 100%. I think the answer that we'd all tell ourselves if we had to go back in time is not, you don't get in this industry to start to scale right away. You don't do that. If you do that, you're just going to make stupid mistakes. But what you want to do is you want to build your business. I'm going to say this very carefully. You build it to scale. In the beginning, you are building your foundation, right? Your goal should not be to scale it right then and there, but your goal is to build it in a way that it can be scaled in 4, 5, 6 months, in a year. Because otherwise, what happens is what I mentioned earlier is when people just focus on getting deals and they take all the shortcuts they can to get a deal, 2 deals, 3 deals. And then what ends up happening is when the time comes, when they have the acumen, the experience, maybe the money, right, or just the intangible traits to be able to hopefully make more money, what ends up happening is they audit their business, they audit their blueprint, the skeleton that they have, and they realize, oh crap, this can't be scaled. This model is inherently flawed because I built it the wrong way. What do? They tear it down and rebuild it on a molecular level. So what I would say is this: you should 1,000% focus on this. You shouldn't focus on, you should focus on 100% on outreach and how to have meaningful conversations with sellers. But guys, that is just the very basics of having conversations. If you can also focus on how to actually build the skeleton of your business the right way in the beginning, then you will build it to scale. What's up?
I got more questions, man. Because I want to ask all the questions from before I knew the answer, because these were the things that after I heard this, I'd be sitting in my room by myself thinking, man, but what about this? So Sam, let me ask, what time of day should I be working on scaling my business? Is this because I'm in there, I'm new to wholesaling, I'm making the calls and I'm calling from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Should I take some of my 9 to 6 time frame to work on scaling the business? Should I work on it in the wee mornings or in the late night? Where would I place this if I'm still that solopreneur guy?
I would say this, because we're in a game of doing outreach to human beings, right? We have optimal times to do that outreach, right? There's also laws in place. You can't be telemarketing to people after 8 p.m. in most states. You're going to get sued, right? You're going to get fined. So we don't recommend that. I think there's times where you work on your business and there are times when you work in your business. And the times that you work on your business, right, scaling, systems, processes, the skeletal stuff in your business, is a time where you can't do outreach. That's why I said this. Marlon, you and I were on stage in Phoenix, and I said this. I said that, people make money Monday through Friday. Millionaires are made on Saturdays, but billionaires are made on Sundays. The days and the time frames where you cannot go have meaningful conversations with sellers, you cannot have meaningful conversations with other people because it's too late in the day, those are the times where those are actually the best times to get all that work done. If it's 2 p.m. in the middle of the day, you should be on the phone with sellers having meaningful conversations about buying their properties, right? But at 10 p.m. at night, when all the sellers are asleep and you're still awake, you're still wide awake, that is the perfect time to build out your SOPs, to build out your databases. That would be my answer. What do you think?
I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I want to say something that, this is me talking to my, 18-year-old self right now, which is, I know you guys we want to find balance, right? However, we're not in the season to find balance. This is the season of going and hitting the gym, grinding hard, building up, not getting all the sleep that maybe you need to get. However, this is going to be the season of sacrifice, because at some point there will be a season where it's going to be hey, I'm just in the maintain season. I'm in the balance season. I'm in the right. But that's when you're an older man or an older woman. Right now, you're not in that season. Right now, this is going to be the season of, look, I work and I bust my ass and I make the calls and I'm working in the business during the work hours. And then in the after hours, I'm working on the business. I just got back home from California this past weekend, and I sat down with my housemates and I explained to them, I was like, guys, the next 90 days, I'm going dark, right? I'm not going out for fun. I'm not hanging out with anybody unless it's a business opportunity. If it's not making money or building the business, I want no parts in doing it. Right. I'm saying no to everything else, because building this foundation is absolutely critical. If the foundation isn't built strong, like Sam is saying, like Alejandro is saying, if this foundation is not there, unfortunately, later when you try to add more, it will crumble. It will crumble. It will crumble. So, Sam, I have another question, and this also is for you, Alejandro. with creating those SOPs, I think a lot of people freeze. And again, I'm using myself. Like, I'll be everyone's scapegoat, and I'll say this. I was scared to make SOPs because I kept worrying that I was going to screw it up, that I wouldn't be able to explain it properly. Can we talk about that? Like, what if a person is like, look, I want to make the SOPs, but like, oh man, but I have so many different kinds of conversations. How can I possibly record the sort of conversation I'm going to have? Or, well, sometimes I do it like this and sometimes I do it like that. What would you tell that person who feels like they can never quite figure out how to make the SOP perfect, and that's why the SOP hasn't been made yet?
Ooh. Alejandro, I'll let you speak first, but I definitely, because I've done both. I've made them and I've paid pretty price tags for them. And I'm going to tell you, like, in my experience, what works. But Alejandro, what curious to hear your take on
it. I just get it done, man. I did not want to do SOPs, but as I started hiring more employees, it started to become more annoying of how many questions I get per day and answering the same question over and over. And it's not annoying as far as from the employee approaching you. It's annoying if you hearing yourself repeat yourself over and over and over and over. So I just had to get it done. It took me 2 weeks to get it done for all the departments, lead generation, lead manager, acquisitions, transaction coordinator, dispositions, core values, Loom videos. Like, my SOP is pretty aggressive, and there's still stuff that we can add onto it. But something that I did add that it's really helping is I had a frequently asked questions workspace for all the employees. So I have a rule: before you ask me any questions, go submit it to that workspace so I can respond to it with a Loom. And then that, once I respond to it with a Loom, it goes to that person's email, the person that asked it, and it also attaches to my SOP. So now the employees are actually building the SOPs for me, if that makes sense.
Dude, that is one that's genius, right? Because what you're doing is you're basically you're aggregating tons of data. You're basically crowdsourcing problems to be solved for the crowd in the future.
Yep.
I've done both things, guys. So one, my mind, when I think SOPs, or at least when I used to think SOPs, I think, man, this has to be like a really fancy graphic that's done right, and I need to convey this information in a perfect manner, because if I don't do it, then I'm setting them up to fail, and it means that I'm a shitty leader, right? So what do? And I also wanted to see SOPs from the highest performing teams. So one of my mentors, she and her husband do, on average, about $150,000 a month. They're typically anywhere between $400,000 to $500,000 per month in wholesaling. And I'm like, okay, these are some of the best in the business. Let's see what their SOPs look like. So I pay them a crap ton of money just to get their SOPs, just to get to see what they look like at the highest levels. They're super impressive. Now I see what the highest level SOPs that cost a ton of money look like. And here's what I realize. Don't spend the money. Every time you do anything in your business, don't even worry about writing it down, transcribing it. Don't do that. We're in a golden age of tech. Just record yourself doing it. If it is a task that can be done, guess what? It can be recorded at the same time. So whether that's Loom or Screencastify, I think is another free one, or hell, get your iPhone out, record yourself comping, and just talk through it. And what's going to happen is if you do that enough times, you're going to get really good at conveying that message. And what you're going to do is if you comp, and you're like, Sam, well, damn, comping one property versus another is different, right? 100%. But if you do 50 different comping videos of 50 different types of properties, what you're going to find is that there's going to be common denominators that go throughout each. You'll find patterns. And then to Alejandro's point, you do enough of those and create a database of them. It's a slow build up, but it will start snowballing. Eventually, every problem, every task, every event, every question will have an answer that will be there when you're not there. And that's the whole point. So, Marlon, you're absolutely right, man. Because when I first started doing SOPs, my biggest hangup was the fact that in my life, I had never done SOPs in anything, right? I just live life, right? When I play video games, I play video games. When I watch TV, I watch TV. I've never had to write down, here's how to turn on the TV. But when you see SOPs for what they really are, it literally just is this: pick up remote, hit on button, hit guide, go through the channels and find what you like. That is what an SOP essentially is. It is just a simple step-by-step process documented in some way, shape, or form. Make it easy on yourselves, guys. If you guys aren't all about transcribing and writing things down, cool. Loom videos. Screencastify. They're free. Marlon, does that answer your question?
Bro, that answers it perfectly, because I was that person where I was constantly afraid. And what I found was, and this was pretty startling to me, I found that in my mind, my ego was getting in the way of thinking, man, like, oh, I'm the only one that could do this. I'm the only one that can do this. I'm the only one that can do this. And like, I kept telling myself this false story, or no one's going to do it as great as me. Guess what I found out? I don't do things great by any means. I don't do things nearly as great as I think, as I would like to think I do in my mind. It's not like you guys hear me talk about my assistant Karen all the time because of how awesome she is. And she does things way better than I ever will. And what it took was showing, just like what Sam said, creating a Loom video of me doing it once. And the interesting thing is they will come along into your team. If you get quality people who are a part of your core values, they will come into your team. They will watch that video. They will figure out what you've done, and they will do it better. And then to Alejandro's point, you can ask them like, hey, wow, you did this at like half the time it took me. Do you mind putting together a video on how you did that? And now your SOPs are being updated.
Yep, they get built upon. All you have to do, guys, in the beginning with an SOP is just create the basic skeleton, right? Then your teammates are going to come in, right? You're going to empower them to be creative. You're going to empower them to solve new problems. All you have to do is just give them the base skeletal structure. They're going to come in and put the muscle tissue on. They're going to come in and just bring it to life, right? Then put on the skin, then put on the clothes. And all of a sudden, your SOP is a living, breathing organism that works and it functions at a high level. But it has to start with the basics of you just doing something. And to Alejandro's point, like now he's doing this point where he's inviting his members to his teammates or team members to come in and basically find new problems to solve, add it to a directory or a database that just keeps building and building and building and building. And the more that his team builds, the more unique problems they'll run into, the more unique solutions they'll have. And guess what happens, guys? Just so you guys know, there are businesses, not in wholesale, because it can't happen in wholesale for a million different reasons, but in other businesses, companies will do this over and over and over again, package all these things together, and then sell it as a franchise model. That's actually what franchising and licensing is all about. It is just selling SOPs that no one else has built out. Yep. That's why I look in this industry and look at other industries. I'm like, man, sometimes I just want to go into another industry, not to go do the business, just to identify best practices, document them in an SOP package, slap a label on it, market it. Guess what? That's franchising 101. That's a totally different story. We could go ham.
Bro, I love it though, like, because I think you're giving people paradigm shifts right now. I think you're opening up new perspectives and getting people to realize business isn't necessarily just about the industry you're in. It's really understanding what is the conveyor belt process of your business. Yep. Whatever that conveyor belt process is, anybody can duplicate it. There is nobody on this planet that is so special that they are the only one that does something that no one else can do. Nothing. Even like Kevin Hart, like we can recreate Kevin Hart. If someone sat there and just understood the process he went through, we can recreate and have an army of Kevin Harts.
Yeah. Oh, 1,000%. So Marlon and I, we were in Tampa for Abraham Gray and Carl Allen's Dealmaker event, which is all about buying businesses, right, and scaling a portfolio of businesses. A way of doing that is this thing called consultation for equity. I got back home, and within day one, I had an inbound consultation for equity lead on a type of company that I have no experience in. It's a home services type of business where I've never done that. Right? I've never employed a company of that service, but because I understand that all business is effectively the same, it is effectively data sets, lead generation, sales/acquisition, right? Which is all under the umbrella of marketing, then fulfillment and some form of post-sale fulfillment or transaction coordination is also a mix in it. Once you realize that these things are just these things, First thing I'm doing when I'm talking to this company, literally, Marlon, the first question that I had for them when I got all the owners on the phone, what do your SOPs look like, and do you even have them?
Can I say something real quick? I've been really quiet this throughout this podcast just because I like when Sam started talking about business scaling. I'm really a student when it comes to that. So thank you, Sam, for sharing that with us. I wanted to add something that tags along with the SOPs. And Sam, maybe this could be your the next thing we speak about when it comes to scaling is employees. Dude, oh my God. If someone would have shown me how to hire the right employees from the jump, bro, my business would have been like next level right now. So that's something because a lot of people like instantly when they start doing their wholesale business, they start reaching out to their friend, their cousin, their aunt. Don't do it. Don't do it. People are gonna ask us why, but that is a whole hour podcast.
Dude, bro. Yes, one, do not hire family. Period. It's a unicorn to find a relationship in your family that actually freaking works. It's a unicorn. Don't do it. It's rare as hell, but you're absolutely right. I paid this mentor $25,000 every 6 months. And this mentor gives me SOP infrastructure, HR infrastructure, because people tell you how to do deals, but they do not tell you how to recruit, hire, train, and retain. That is a different monster, and no one teaches us how to do it until now, because the Think Big podcast will teach you how to do it for free. We'll give you all the game in the world. Alejandro, now that you've hired people, now that you've done it through the process, and you now have a structure to it, looking back at it, is it really as hard as you maybe thought it was in the beginning?
Ask that one more time. I feel like that was a trick question.
No. Now that you've done it, right? Now that you've built a structure around how you hire, right? You've got a process on how you interview and hire and train people.
Yep.
Looking back at yourself maybe a year ago, is it as hard as you maybe thought it was a year ago when you were first starting out?
Back then, I thought it was really simple. I thought it was like easy. And now, like today, I'm like, holy crap, this shit is actually pretty difficult to do properly. Like you can just hire anyone. That's no problem. People like I've had people that just, hey, let me work for you. And you can just be like, yeah, sure. Okay. But having the right culture and the right people in place, dude, that takes time.
Yep.
That takes time. And you have to have the right foundation and you must know your core values. If you don't know your core values, you are in dip.
No, 1,000%. The reality is this: it's actually simpler than we might think it is, but it's not easy, right? Simple and easy they're not always the same. And what can make your life a million times easier is having a structured process on how you do it, right? I love that you said this. A lot of times in this industry, we hire because like, oh, we did a deal together. We're friends and we like each other. And then we're just going to hire each other and work because that's how we're taught to do this industry. And that's totally freaking wrong. Alejandro's right. Number one, without a shadow of a doubt, you hire based on core values, period. Yes. After that, then you hire based on logistics and the ability to complete the tasks that are needed to be done effectively, ethically, and efficiently.
Yep.
Shout out to Cody Rose, who's in the chat. He's one of the best hires I've ever made. He's one of my sales directors for a DTA team that we're building, direct to agent team, and he's helping me lead that. And we're dealing with hiring a crap ton of people in a very short amount of time. And we're making sure that we have the filtering process through and through, right? Hiring is difficult. It is not easy at all, but it can be a lot easier if you just have a consistent structure and step-by-step process in place. So like for us guys, I mean, if that's a value, and I know it is, a lot of people may not see the value in it because they're kind of in the grinding phase of being solopreneurs. But when you start like scaling, then you start understanding HR, SOPs, and interviewing and hiring. That's the secret sauce. That is the key to success. That's how you go from being a millionaire to a billionaire. So I think we might save that for a later one because we're already over time today. But dude, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that we talked about that. That's a huge one.
100%. So let's pull it back. One final thing. I want to give everyone like the most simple start here right now. If you're interested in eventually scaling your business, you need to be focused on this for the next 30 days. implement this as you're going about doing your regular routine. Add this in addition to, and this is already assuming that you have some form of a foundation, that you have some form of a routine, that you've already gotten some traction, that you're already moving. Like if your car is in park, the advice here is not for you. But if you're moving and you're going like at 15 miles an hour and you're trying to speed up and accelerate to 45 miles an hour, 50 miles an hour, then this is what you need to be adding on. So what would be that thing if we had to try our best to give some piece of universal practice?
Ooh, I would say for the next 30 days, you need to basically do internal independent audits of every portion of your business. From your data, where are you getting your data sets? Where are they coming from? Are they optimal? Figure that out. Audit it, pencil it down. What does it look like? How much does it cost? What is your cost per record? What is your cost per every little minor detail? Audit that. Then you're going to audit your lead generation, whether it's texting or cold call or PPC. What does every little line item look like? Then see how long it takes from a lead being generated to a lead being closed. How long does it take? How many leads? How many at-bats do we have before a contract goes up? Track all these things. Then what does TC look like? What does Dispo look like? Right now, I would say for the next 30 days, do a complete audit of every department in your business.
That's a whole podcast, man. How to track KPIs.
Dude, kill it with KPIs. Ooh, Think Big Podcast presents Kill It with KPIs.
That'll be fire.
I like that.
So audit your business, audit your time, track everything for the next 30 days. And if you don't know what to track, simple, track everything. Like have a journal. Is it safe to say like every 30 minutes you pull your journal out and you just simply jot down what you just did for the last 30 minutes?
Oh, 1,000%. Hormozi even hired someone at a point, like this sounds superfluous and sounds ridiculous, but it's true. He hired someone for an extended period of time to help him audit what he was thinking about. And then what he ended up doing is like he realized over like a long enough time horizon, he spent 30% of his time thinking about one specific topic that didn't make him money.
You know, really quick, damn, we're over time. Crap. Just really quick, for those who's currently running their own business, not someone that's looking to start, just from a book I read, I forgot the name of the book, but the worst employee of the business is the owner, right? The worst employee of the business is the owner. And people are like, what are you talking about? I built this from the ground up. Well, let me ask you this. Who's holding you accountable for your actions? Yourself, right? So something that I do daily, I personally do this daily, is I run KPIs on myself. I want to see where my time is going. What am I doing with my time? Am I doing something productive that's going to help my employees, etc.? So think about that. Don't be that business owner. I run the business so I can leave whatever time I want. No. Make an accountability chart of yourself and put yourself in whatever departments you're in. If you're cold calling or if you're doing lead managers or if you're closing, you are an employee. You are not a business owner. You need to separate yourself from those departments. You're a business owner when you have employees running all departments for you. Until then, you are an employee and you need to audit yourself as an employee. And if you don't, then you're probably hurting your business. So keep that in mind. Yeah, that could be a whole other podcast too, man.
Dude, that is. I'll wrap it with this because I want to hit on that. Someone, a really high performer in this industry, makes millions of dollars a month. I was at a hangout with him, and he had a bottle, like a glass bottle. He's drinking like a beer or something, and then he said, "Sam, do you know where the bottleneck in every business is?" Showed me the bottle. The bottleneck's at the top. The bottleneck in every business is at the top. It's always the owner. It's always management. That's where it always actually is. And for those of you who have some traction, who are making a decent amount a bit of money, and you want to scale even further, I would actually take what Alejandro said and take it honestly one step further. This was a game changer for me, is getting a business coach whose job it is every single week, if not every day, to hold you accountable to all the bullshit that you like lie to yourself about, the stuff that you say that you're going to do that you're not going to do.
Yeah.
I literally have my call with my business coach tomorrow, and like that keeps me in line. It keeps me centered. It keeps me focused. It keeps me accountable. And when I don't do what I say I'm gonna do, he calls me out 1,000%. So for the ones who have or in the position where that's like a potential for you, I'd highly recommend looking into it. It would be next level.
Yep.
All right, guys, we definitely went over on this one today. We are so
100%.
sorry, guys.
Hope it was.
I want to say first off, thank you to everybody that came in, hung out, interacting in the chat. You know, it's always dope seeing like guys and girls like Jonathan, Brenda, Joseph Frangos, Cody Rose in the chat. Like just watching you guys blow it up and participate and be a part of the conversation is huge. If you ever have questions, don't just be a fly on the wall. Get your questions answered. Put it out there. Start the conversation. Also, make sure you're connecting with one another. I also saw Chris James just pop up. Chris James is an OG, killing it up in New York, doing deals nationwide. Shout out to Chris. Guys, do me a favor. If you're getting value from these podcasts, leave a like, right? Hit the little thumbs up button on the video. If you're watching on Sam's, if you're watching on Alejandro, if you're watching on Daryl's YouTube, leave a little thumbs up. And if you're not subscribed already, subscribe, because every single week we're putting out new episodes. These episodes are dropping every Tuesday, 5 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. We're going to be coming back to your airwaves every week, bringing new value. And when you leave those comments, I know what these guys are doing it too. We're reading through all of the comments. This is how we're finding topics. It's because these are the questions y'all are asking us in our DMs, right? These are the text messages we're getting. Like, yo, I'm going through this problem. And also, these are the personal problems that we're overcoming in our own businesses as well. So you're getting to watch us grow in real time. So be a part of that conversation. Just again, I want to say thank y'all for being here. Those are my final words, and we'll see you back here next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Arizona time.